They promised a 28-acre park 11 years ago in exchange for these towers, and they changed the zoning, did not purchase the land, and it's gone up in value exponentially, but still needs to be the park.
This is not a gift. This is not a gift from the Parks Department. This is not a gift from Mayor de Blasio. This is not a gift from New York City. This was a transaction. This was a deal made when the city went and took 185 blocks on both sides of this and rezoned it for residential and let the developers come in like sharks.
Most of the properties were part of the manufactured gas and original oil refinery industries in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. So there is coal tar and numerous, volatile organic chemicals, as byproducts of that, and oil refining that's down there, and then there's the base, what's called the Bayside Fuel site, is where there are massive dormant oil tanks,
and it's all contaminated. And right where this blue area is what was on fire a year ago. For 6 weeks, and it was another warehouse next to this one. And now the property is for sale. Norman Brodsky is trying to sell it to the highest bidder. He built on the land knowing that it was a promised park, and the city didn't buy it then, and that's too bad, but they still need to acquire it now before it goes to developers. Well, we've had a rally at City Hall. We've finally gotten the mayor to even address the situation. We've had a rally on the property. We've had a flash mob. We've had a Occupy the Inlet with kayaks and canoes and a sailboat come from the water side, just all to bring attention to this. So we go to a lot of meetings, and we're not going to stop until we have our park.
Borough President Eric Adams had this idea. He said, I really think we should have a sleepover in the park. If you don't build it, we're coming anyway. We're in such need of a park. Other politicians came earlier in the evening and then left, but Carolyn Maloney, the congresswoman, and Borough President Eric Adams, they slept here on this concrete in tents all night. And that was in the New York Times. So that's why I say I think it was a marker in our fight that, whoa, these people are serious. They're out there in the pouring buckets of rain. The last time we talked, we were in the fight, and we were feeling discouraged, I think, because it was not looking good. The expense of this parcel of land was so enormous that it seemed like the city of New York would not possibly be able to afford it. And so the big change is now I'm standing here, and we got it, we won. The city of New York came forward with the money, and they bought the missing piece of the park. So we're very thrilled, we're very excited, we're very grateful that it turned out this way, because now there's going to be a beautiful park on the edge of this magnificent East River for future generations to come and relax and enjoy and look at this unbelievable view of New York City. I've had future generations in my mind all the time since I came to Greenpoint, because actually when his dad was my little baby, we never got to the edge. We never looked at the water. My favorite phrase is catch a breeze. With my son, we never could catch a breeze. So I sort of felt like, I have my second chance now to try to continue the fight to make Greenpoint and Williamsburg more open and friendly and healthier for all the people that live here.
It should be like a basic right, a New Yorker right, to have a beautiful park right in your neighborhood.
Bloomberg administration rezoned Greenpoint, Williamsburg, waterfront, about 200 blocks, to allow this massive conversion from industrial to massive luxury residential. And as part of that, they did an environmental impact statement. They basically said your open space situation is abysmal, so we'll build about 50 acres of open space on the waterfront all the way up the East River to around Newtown Creek. And the centerpiece would be Bushwick Inlet Park right here on the East River from North 9th to possibly North 15th where Bushwick Inlet is. Fast forward to 2015, 10 years later, the towers are all coming and the tear downs inland, building higher luxury buildings and no park. And so at that point they haven't even acquired most of the land. You can see the soccer field where there are a lot of overhead footage of that, but the other 4 parcels are in the process of being acquired. But the city storage site where you saw that warehouse, it's an L-shaped property, and on the north side of that, there was a massive, fire that Maggie alluded to in the film that lasted 6 weeks. There was, there were millions of records that burned up. But anyhow, what happened is the property was put on the market. The city just kind of ignored it, and that was a rallying call for the community to come together and to hold the city accountable, and the public trust and fighting for our lives in terms of preserving some open space for our children and for all the working people and the artists in this neighborhood. And it took 2 years after the 10-year wait to finally prevail. And there was, like I said, tons of rallies and street theater, overnight campouts, but we also went to the community boards all over the city where there was rezoning hearings. We got in the face of city planning and said to these communities, look, they're promising you a bed of roses, and they promised the same to us, and they screwed us over. So, the city has no creds, said it's all. And that paid big dividends. So inevitably in November, the city finally made a deal with the owner of that property, and they agreed to a number. And then just earlier this year, they finally closed the actual acquisition. So,
I was thinking, you want to have Maggie talk about what's going to happen next now that you guys got the park?
No, I don't think anything is still
Well,
like a fight ahead.
Well, it's not so much a fight. It's just they spent gazillions of dollars basically to buy the final part of the whole thing. Now they have to build it out, and that's going to So the idea is now we have to fight, not necessarily fight, but we have to push and work the system to.
Take down the.
Yeah, so you have to tear down. Well, first, there's 2 million records in the existing buildings. That'll take at least a year or 2 for those to be vacated and for the tenant to get out of there. And then they have to demolish that building. They have to demolish the oil tanks, and then they have to remediate. That was basically 50 years of oil refinery contamination at the bottom of them. It took them 18 months just to do one part. And then maybe after that, they'll get around to actually building it, and hopefully along the way we can work on a community-based design process. Part of it, the part that they are actually within a week, they're going to open up another part, which is 50 Kent, which was part of the oil refinery business. And there's a process that has just got in motion of creating kind of an interim space there with dunes and sand-based flora and some big boulders that they just excavated out of the site that they're building kitty corner across the street. So,
Right, isn't 50 Kent right behind the Wythe Hotel, and that's where they did the sleepover, right? Basically right in this neighborhood.
well, it's in between. There's a Wythe Hotel, and then there's a big pit where there's a giant office building that they're going to build, and then there's 50 Kent. Yeah, essentially, 2 blocks.
That part has been remediated. It was under a big tent for the last year, and it cost a fortune to fix, and it said it would be open on May 12th. But basically, it's not open, it's a dirt area. It's not, it's a flat. It's not where the hole is. That's going to be developed. It's on the water side of Kent. Next to the warehouse, the blue warehouse, but not, it's this side of Kent from the fire. And that is still going to be behind chain link locked gates until that's where I said there's still a fight, not a fight, but it's sort of a effort that needs to be done. It will be open, I mean, but it's not gonna be planted with grass, it's dirt. And so that's where the community is getting together to come up with ideas that are sustainably inexpensive and just intermediary, because the original plan in 2005 covered all that acreage, but that's not set in stone. So what we're trying to do is at least make it usable immediately with sort of dryscaping and the boulders and access to the public.
The danger of doing that too much is then they might just leave those tanks there, right?
Those will be coming down. Those is already in the plans. And that whole area hasn't even begun.
In the building, like people are breaking into the building. So.
Yes, right. So that is definitely coming down. That part had been acquired, but only just in the over a period of years with eminent domain, and then they finally left just within the last year. So now it has to be cleaned up.
So we're talking about 20 years possibly, right? To get the park really open.
I would say
A few.
it's hard to say. I would say at least. I would say, yeah, I would expect like definitely within the 5 to 10 year range. You know, potentially, if we're hit by another recession, and that could, compound that.
Well, Kim and I smelled gas, coal tar gas when we were down at 50 Kent, and Kim was like, well, it's supposed to be all gone now. So we couldn't tell it was from the area that, what's the
That's gonna be 25 Kent.
Right.
Across the street. Yeah, there was coal tar down there, but because it's a private property, they just said, nah, the heck with it, we're not gonna tent it and protect the public. And meanwhile, people were like running around the track in McCarran Park, and they were being consumed with coal tar fumes. And, so. Yeah, it's not cyanide, but it's, but yeah, so, yeah, any questions from?
Yeah, was Mayor de Blasio was a big help in this? Did he push it over the top for you guys? Or?
In the end, but no, they really had to be convinced.
Okay.
I mean, essentially what they wanted to do was to compromise with the owner and put up, affordable housing, but wrapped in luxury tower development.
I guess my basic question from the outside is: do we keep the guy in office? Is he a good guy?
Well, yeah, no. Like I said, he really had to be convinced, and it took the community and fortunately all of our local reps together to convince him to do it. But he's been all about equity supposedly, and so parks are totally about equity. It doesn't matter where you live or where you're from or your background. Parks are for everyone. It's truly about equity, and he acknowledged that in our celebration. So yeah, but it's not his top priority, but I think it has to be. I feel like cities that are totally balanced with housing and transportation and schools, open space are the most optimal type of living quality. But just to be housing, it's it's just ends up just being kind of rats in cages. It's just
But it really takes community activism to get anything to happen. And I mean, you guys were very unusual in that you actually did get it pushed through in 11 years. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was 11 years, and then it was accelerated in these last 2. Yeah, and it's all about community. And this neighborhood for decades has history of community activism fighting, because it was this heavy industrial inland and on the waterfront. and it's left a toxic legacy. And we fought power plants and incinerators and oil spills, even radioactive transfer station down the street next to a school. It's just been, nonstop. Any other questions?
Okay.
What's been your main way of communicating with the community outside of going to community boards? Like, how have you guys been successful in reaching out to people and getting people to come together?
Yeah, mainly it was just when we were in the heart of the battle, we used to have weekly meetings at Greenpoint Beer and Ale, formerly Dirk the Norseman, on North 15th and where Franklin and Kent Avenue come together. But now we've kind of slowed down. We're trying to have monthly meetings, and so we have social media, a website, a Facebook page, etc., and a big mailing list. So that's how we're mainly engaging the community. We're trying to ramp that up. We kind of caught our breath there for a little while after the victory, but we want to re-engage the community and creating this this great new space.
Well, I was going to say, probably because the EPA is being defunded, and it looks like New York State is going to have to take, and the city is going to have to take up the slack where the EPA and federal funding was involved, which means that if these guys don't stay on their community, on their leaders and the politicians, probably not, could be a long time before they finish the park. So now community activism and all of the boroughs is really important.
Well, first of all, it would probably be basically a state process. It was the state Superfund. And there are responsible parties like National Grid and Exxon and others. Though, National Grid technically paid for the 50 Kent cleanup, but in the process, they got the state to approve a rate hike to cover that, and then massive cleanup in other sites. So essentially, we're paying for it through them. Yeah. So.
We should probably.
Okay, and also I thank Rosa. First of all, she's just awesome. She's just been putting this festival on for 6 years, and it's just great. The Center of TV and Film in Brooklyn puts on this festival every year, and she always has community and local programming, within the other general programming, and it's really great. So thanks, Rosa.
Thank you.